Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of American Groove, baby. Lost in the Groove segment with me, Dave, your host, and our other host.
Your other host, Karissa.
Yay! Today is a really special episode because we pay homage to a pioneer in gay activism, gay rights, gay liberation, not just gay liberation, but liberation for the entire queer community. Harvey Milk. Incredible story. For me, it's consisted of being up until 1 o'clock in the morning, watching movies, reading books, and I need some sleep. I definitely need some sleep.
I too have been living in a Harvey Milk world ever since David brought up Harvey Milk's name. I just can't stop thinking about it, especially today. I guess I didn't know who Harvey Milk was. David told me about Harvey Milk. David, how did you learn about Harvey Milk? What brought him onto your radar? Because this happened far before I was born, you know?
So, Harvey Milk, hey, welcome.
Hi.
We're doing a live on Instagram for anyone that's listening to this podcast. Probably doesn't make any difference because, you're watching this on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but to our people on Instagram, it's a little different. Anyway, going off tangents. So with Harvey Milk, for me, was just learning about the community and what it was. For somebody like me that grew up in an ultra-Orthodox community.
And yeah.
I was kind of segregated from all types of queer community and those kind of people. And I mean, there were people that were right next to me, but I didn't know because they were closeted themselves. I started looking at history because that's what I did. I used to read a lot. And I actually found out about Harvey Milk through the rainbow flag. It turns out that he wasn't the one that made it. Gilbert Baker was one that designed the LGBTQ flag, but he actually worked together with Harvey Milk, and that's actually how I discovered a few years ago about Harvey Milk, and then I delved into the story this past week or so for the podcast and my stone brain.
Yes. No, yeah. I mean, I just wondered how you heard about Harvey Milk because I heard about him through you. But I mean, just real rough, at the beginning, somebody was like, oh, yeah, I've heard about Harvey Milk. He's that politician that got shot. And, you hear that and it's that doesn't sound very interesting. But honestly, it was way more interesting than I thought it was going to be. I mean, the one thing that he did right before he died was that he got this prop put in where people wouldn't get fired for revealing that they're gay.
Well, it was
it a prop?
Prop 6.
Yeah, and this was San Francisco, and to me, that's what caught my attention. I was like, "Holy shit! That's a really big deal." I mean, but that to me, that I'm just kind of given this broad very beginning of the podcast why you should care who Harvey Milk is, and I think that's the first reason.
But here's the thing also, we were talking about this over the phone. No disrespect to the man, he is a gay activist and we give him a lot of credit, but in all honesty, he was just a white, he was just an atypical white Jewish man. The only thing that made him significant was the fact that he was gay, and whether that is the truth, but it's not the whole truth. It doesn't tell his whole story. He didn't use white privilege to his advantage. He used white privilege to his disadvantage. I mean, the man is dead for a reason. You know what I mean?
He got shot. I feel like from what I saw and from what I know, it seemed kind of natural for him to get into politics. I think that he cared a lot about that area of the city, and he was involved with those people. He had this camera shop, so he was running a business, and if you're running a business in the 70s, I would think you care about the politics of your business. You care about the rules of your city because you're running a business there, is what I'm trying to say. So it does seem like he also, he was a gay activist, and he'd been an activist for a long time. There were a lot of different things that he'd been involved in.
Yeah,
but
throughout his life.
It seemed natural. Like he really just had those interests, and he really just followed his interests, which was to stand up for gay people that were oppressed. I mean, the level of oppression is hard to watch. To see people talk about, like, you've got to come out, and like these conversations that I saw, and to see these people so closeted, it is eye-opening. I sometimes forget how bad it was back then. But something needed to be done. And especially in a city of San Francisco, these are the people that are paying the taxes. These are the people that are voting, and so it's like, you need to listen to those people. Those are the citizens of your city, so to me, it seems like it was natural for him, and that it was just something that he cared about, and he just went ahead and did it. It's cool to me. I love that a regular guy could get involved, just like a regular citizen. I think that's great.
Well, the story about Harvey Milk starts off with his grandfather. To anyone that's listening, Harvey Milk was from Lithuanian descent. His grandfather came here originally in the late 1800s. And just like many Jewish immigrants, just like my family, my mom is the same thing. My mother is Hungarian and Polish descent. Her family came in the late 1800s through Ellis Island, like many, 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 many Jews did at the time. That's how it was. You came to America to the promised land, the land that the land of freedom. And there was a pattern from the very beginning where his grandfather had a son, and his son was this rebellious, cocky, anti just everything. And there was this repetitive pattern, and you could see this once Harvey was alive and throughout his life. He had a lot of abuse, not a trauma, and he tried to constantly be a fatherly figure to the young people around him. And that may seem as a negative, but in many ways it was a positive, because he was able to relate to the younger generation. So important is the younger generation, because they are our replacements, whether we want to hear it or not. We're going to die, and then these kids, they're going to replace us. They're going to be the next people after us. This is the importance of talking about Harvey Milk. It's not about what happened in 1978. It's what we can learn and what we've adapted into the Black community, the Hispanic community, the Asian community, the queer community, many communities throughout this country, and how to be progressive with our thoughts. Let's think about, let's think about the kids. What can we do for the next generation? Sorry, that was a long tangent. Sorry.
It's a good tangent. What can we do for the next generation? I do. I think that it's absolutely incredible how much Harvey did within the time that he actually had. And I love that, the work that he did, was still huge, regardless of if he died or not. That was still a really big thing, it's like he didn't have to die for everybody to realize that, this segregation was wrong. Matter of fact, no actual rights for the people were gained out of his death. It wasn't like anybody opened their eyes and were like, oh man, we should have done this. Yeah. The way that the response to his death was, we'll talk about that at the end. But
From the very beginning, and one thing which I could personally relate to is growing up in a masculine world. Okay, I grew up in separate schools. I grew up where there was only boys in my school, which was called yeshiva, and you had girls that went to their own separate schools. And because he was growing up in a world that was very dominant by men, and homosexuality was not okay in the 1950s by any means. Okay, there were there were gay witch hunts in the 1950s. You don't believe me? Go on Google right now. It is freaky, and that happened here in major cities.
I'm trying to like fix my camera. It did. I mean, when I was a kid, I remember, I mean, the brutality amongst homosexual people was widely known. And the reason that people didn't come out was because people were abused and murdered and killed. People were drug behind trucks for being gay. Like, seriously, it was insane. And this was like, I mean, this is like early 90s. So like imagine like it's not only that you don't want to get alienated amongst your people, but you're like literally afraid that people will kill you because you're gay. And that's just the people that like not like authorities or anything like that. Like seriously, just like people at your high school or something like that, like might just kill you. Like that's terrible.
Okay, well, this is our producer. Her name's Twix. Come here, baby. Come here.
I hate how close my camera is to me. Like the computer camera is fine, but this Instagram camera is harsh.
Hey, you know something? It's got a good vibe to it. Let's just keep it going. Like, I think everybody's okay with this. I'm not the only one that
my first time. I'm like, oh God, look how far away your camera is. You see,
okay, first of all, do you understand how much pressure it is on me? Okay, that I'm doing this, like recording this. We got people that's watching us, all right? And I'm talking about like this guy that I've spent way too many hours watching about, like and like come on, we know those feelings. We know when we spend too much time on movies, but
we have people listening to us right now. I wonder if they've learned anything about Harvey Milk so far. Maybe they already know,
Ooh, yeah, maybe there's some things that we didn't know about Harvey Milk. But it's kind of where you have the double-edged sword, because you have in the 1950s where people have to be so closeted because of the KKK, because of the amount of church over country that existed. And think about being a Jew after World War II, after the Holocaust, after Nazi Germany, and you're living in this country after the war, and you're a homosexual. And, I'm going to take it a step further. Let's just say you're a black person, okay? And you're alive then, and you see Jim Crow, you see segregation. You maybe were alive to see what happened in Tulsa. Maybe you were alive enough in the 1920s to remember. If you were someone that remembers all that shit and you were alive in the 1950s and you're gay, just imagine the amount of pressure that is on you. Your life could be gone in an instant, split second.
Yeah. It's so just very dangerous. Yeah.
So just like understanding Harvey's background as to where he came from. He grew up, because he died in his 40s, but he grew up in this period of history that was so dangerous for so many groups of people, not just homosexuals, blacks, Asians. You kidding me? It was fucking horrible in this country if you're Asian in the 1950s.
Well, I read this guy said, back in that time you had just a few options. Like if you were gay, it was either, closet it, never say anything, tell your parents, get kicked out, or, now with Harvey Milk, the option was move to San Francisco. And so it was like,
but it's important.
I don't have to die. I don't have to pretend that I'm someone else. Like,
it's important though, because I don't know if you know this. Harvey, he was, we like to say it's called a knocker. Okay. A knocker is someone that he liked to dig into everything and kind of tell you what was wrong with it. This is what he did throughout his teenage years. I've done this shit all the time, telling something, oh yeah, I know better than you. You're what you're doing is wrong. And I'm like, and you look at this guy and you're like, he's fucking 15. Get the fuck out of here. Who the hell are you? It's just, again, you can see from a development stage, this man become to what he is, because you have to understand something. For somebody to want to do something, and for somebody to want to do something that what Harvey did, it starts from the very beginning. What was his childhood like? What was he like in school? Those are the questions you always want to know, is who was this person?
Mm-hmm.
And he became that,
Yeah. Yeah, you're trying to say that he was always pretty outspoken.
Yeah. It's a New Yorker thing. We have chutzpah. That's the thing about us New Yorkers. We have a lot of chutzpah. Chutzpah.
I'm gonna light my first joint of the day.
Ooh. I will say this. I'm gonna throw some Yiddish words. So anybody doesn't know the Yiddish word and I don't want to give an explanation, please let me know.
Well, I don't know Yiddish words, so you just have to explain them all.
Yeah, of course I'm going to explain all of them. But okay, so this is a fun fact that I didn't say earlier, which I should have. Milk, which is his last name, actually in Yiddish is Milch. And the reason why their last name is Milch, a lot of Jews from Europe, their last names was what they did. So I grew up in schools with people that were Goldsmith, Rosenberg, Bloombaum, all those things. And it all was to symbolize what the family did.
What does a Rosenberg do?
Roseburg is Rose Mountains. So usually that meant that they worked with flowers. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I know. It's so random. Sorry, it's completely random.
No. It makes sense.
But yeah, I mean that's
okay, so what do you think his family used to do?
They were dairy farmers. That's actually where that's his grandfather was a dairy farmer. He came to this country, he failed as a farmer. He went into retail. He had a department store. Which it happened. The thing that you have to understand something is that my family is no stranger to this, because my mother was born in the 50s, late 50s. My grandfather, God bless his soul, he's still alive, he was born in 1932. And hearing his generation, which was Harvey's, my grandfather and him would have been about the same age. You can understand, and this is the important thing about stories, especially about the gay community and activism and the start of a new revolution in history. You can learn a lot from the people that are a part of this movement and why they have such a drive for the future generations, because of what they went through. They don't want anybody to experience that ever again, right?
Well, it's just wrong. I feel for Harvey, he's in a political, he's in a job position where he's allowed to be openly gay. So as a politician, wouldn't it only be right to make sure that your citizens have the same rights as you?
Yeah, but something, his road to politician was a very long road. Throughout the 1960s, he started exploring and he traveled a lot. like he moved from city to city. Like he went from New York to Dallas, and then he would go to Miami. And by the age of 14, he already knew he was gay. And at a young age, his mother, which her name is Minnie. Okay, so get this. My stone brain is like Minnie Milk. Get it? Minnie Milk.
Mini Milk.
Okay, so any Austin Power fans, the mini, like the mini me. I'm fucking butchering the shit out of this. It's the mini me, but it's Minnie Milk. Anyway,
her name is Minnie.
Yeah, her name was Minnie. And he would love to go to the opera in the city. So we never said this before, and sorry for this. Harvey grew up in Long Island. He grew up in Woodmere. And he, at a young age, he kind of resented the religion. He kind of resented the faith. And like I said, by the age of 14, he kind of knew he was gay, and he was kind of figuring himself out. And he was keeping it very closeted. And he loved the theater. He fucking loved the theater. And he begged his mother for money to let him go into the city, which is, anybody that's from New York knows, Long Island to the city, it's a long way. It's like over an hour. And his mother gave him money, and he would go.
Did you also love going to the city?
I love the escape.
Me too.
You see, like the thing I can relate to somebody that grew up in a closed community that is part of the queer community and knows the experience of leaving that and going to a different city that no one knows you, and you could just be yourself. I know that feeling so well. But with Harvey, it was all about him. In a way, he was always open. He just had the privilege to keeping it quiet.
Well, he must have felt safe, because I was talking about like how like, unsafe and how dangerous it could be to be open. I feel like with that community around him, he felt safer. I mean, God, look at what happened to him, so he wasn't safe, but yeah, it takes a level of community and safety, and a community to help you feel safe enough to be, openly gay. And there were many times that Harvey said, I could get shot for what I'm doing. It's quite possible. And people would say, well, aren't you worried? And he'd say, what? I'm going to live each day like I might die. He's like, I can't do that. We can't live that way.
It's funny. A lot of people that like are like celebrities. David Bowie was the same way. David Bowie knew he was gonna die of cancer. And he made another album. Like through all the shit. Like he's like, so what? Like, I know I'm gonna die. You just gotta keep on going at it. And that was a beautiful thing. And that's the amazing thing about a lot of these. And I really hope we can cover some more of them, because there's a lot of great early gay activists, fucking amazing people, just like Harvey. Unfortunately, a lot of them are not alive anymore. But they just had such a drive. They had such a passion and belief for the community. And it wasn't about gays. It wasn't about straights. It wasn't about blacks. It wasn't about Asians. It wasn't about Hispanics. It was just about saying, hey, you want to make sure that you're safe. I want to make sure we're safe, right? Like, we have the same values. Like, in a way, we both want the same thing. You just can't look past the curtain.
Yeah, dude, there was this one part where I saw Harvey like make a speech, and he was talking about, because of course, when he started saying that people shouldn't get fired for being gay, everybody started talking about education. And it was one of the first things that I thought about too, was like, people are going to make a big deal out of gay teachers. I know they are, because they're weird about kids. And this was back in 1978, and not that gay people are weird about kids. I know you looked at me weird. I said straight people are weird about kids and gay people. Like, not all straight people, obviously, but especially back in 1978, they're real weird about gay people around children. And it's like Harvey gave this speech.
I wish I had a gay teacher because I mean, I know a gay teacher and he is, oh my God, he's fucking amazing.
I had gay teachers. Okay, let me say this before I get off track. He said,
sorry.
He goes, oh, so what's your argument? And he said this in front of an entire crowd of people on national television. I don't know if it's national, but it was like California or whatever. But he goes, okay, so you're trying to say that a kid being raised or being taught by gay people will make them gay, you know? And the woman was like, yes, it's an influence, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, so I was raised by straight people and had all straight teachers, and I am gay. Your logic does not make any sense. Like, I was just like, yes. Like, when do you ever see a politician like argue in such like a straightforward, honest, matter-of-fact way that's very personal? You know, because it's hard to argue with him because it's the truth.
So anyone that's listening to this, and here's the truth. The only politicians that will ever be there for their people, and this is not my own personal opinion. I feel like this is the dead truth. The only type of politicians are the ones that come from your community. Somebody that can represent you. Somebody you can look up to and say, you know what? I'm okay with him being governor. He can represent me. Yeah, he grew up, he grew up here, he knows what the life is. That in a way was what Harvey Milk was. He was a hippie that had a ponytail, weird, wore jeans. It's kind of creepy, okay? Hung around a lot of young kids. But like, not in a weird way. Like he loved the youth. He just loved, he was the kind of guy, like I was like reading about this. He was the kind of guy that like you sat with him and you knew you had 100% of his attention. Me, it's like 32%, maybe 21. But him was 100%. Whoa. That's fast.
Yeah. For me, it was like, I learned about Harvey and then also learned that he was assassinated and learned how poorly our government or our judicial system handled his assassination. All of this, I was just like...
We'll go into that.
I know we don't have to go there, but I just want to say, like, the whole story, just like, it was like I fell in love with somebody and then they died, like, all in a matter of a week. Like, I was like, oh, like,
that's how I feel.
Oh my God, this person is so awesome. And then now they're gone. And like, I could feel that devastation, like when I watched the interviews with people and stuff like that. Like, it was like, that's the thing, is he had this excitement going. Everybody was really excited, and things are moving and things are changing, and he wasn't going to stop it, like he was going to continue to make changes. Like, it was just going to keep changing.
Just for any of our listeners that are punk rockers, okay, and love punk, if you've ever heard of a band called Dead Kennedys, which they're from San Francisco, they were a part of the Harvey Milk movement, okay? They loved Harvey Milk, just like all the punkers. And the reason why was like, it was a way of them having freedom. It's like finally for people to just be who they are and allow themselves to be what they are. And it's kind of actually cool. I didn't know this. One of their albums, I forgot which one it was, and we'll talk about this later in the episode, was the White Night Riots, which happened after the trials, which... if you see videos of this shit, it's like one of the worst. I think like it's considered like one of the worst gay riots that happened. It was bad. It was very bad.
Which specific one are you talking about?
We'll get into it later. I'm sorry. I keep doing sneak peeks. I don't know why.
Well, because we know the whole story, and maybe like other people do too, but...
Yeah, but we gotta like...
Yeah, I mean, what happened is that, the whole city was excited about these changes. And, even the straight people, like we all, me, straight-ish, I can relate with both sides. We all love to see our gay friends happy. We love to see our friends keep their jobs. We love to see, our friends be, happy. Like, we don't want anybody feeling oppressed, honestly. Like, everybody was excited, and then there was this just bolt of disappointment. Like, it just put this this big wedge in everything.
So to start the story, he basically had a partner at the time. His name was Scott, and they didn't last for they lasted for a long time, and they broke off, came back, broke off, but he stuck with Harvey to the bitter end. In 1972, he and Scott moved to San Francisco. He actually was in San Francisco before. He worked for a corporate company, surprise, and he gave up that whole lifestyle. He gave it all up, and he met Scott the way he liked to meet men. He met him in the subway, and they just hit it off. And when they got there in 1972 to San Francisco, they set up on Castro Street. And they opened up Castro Camera, which became a very big pinnacle part of his life. And that's where the story starts. I mean, it starts with a man that, like I said, he wore jeans, he had a ponytail, he had a beard. He looked kind of creepy, and I remember he liked to hang around the youth. But he had a dream. He had a dream of bringing people together, and he was the kind of guy that, we've heard this in the interviews. You just would enjoy it. Like, it was just, you would sit here and you would just want to hear this man talk. He was very inspiring, and the amazing part about him was he was able to not only touch on the gay community, but relate with the elderly, the youth,
the
Black community. He just had a knack. He had a way of adapting himself really well.
Yeah, to me, I think that he really did care about the people. Like, he already had a job, he already had a business, so it seems to me like he's just like doing this. So I don't know exactly. You told me that he ran for 3 years or something like that, but he got elected as the district supervisor, right?
So the I'm trying to remember this. The story goes like this. Harvey ran for district supervisor. He did that in 1973. And when he did that, he was, like I said, I mean, he looked like a freak. He was kind of weird. And he put himself completely into it. He went from literally just walking around giving posters and flyers and talking with people. He would bring people together and help them vote. He would kind of bring in people and say, hey, come here, and teach them the importance of voting.
I feel like he kept his promises, think about it. Like, he probably told people, hey, I'm gonna stand up for you, and then he did.
But he put a lot of effort and energy, and he created, the thing about Castro Camera was he was putting so much energy into the community that it wasn't really a camera store. I mean, it was, his original idea was a place. I think it was Scott's idea, because there was a problem where if a person was gay and they went to get their photographs developed, a lot of places would ruin them because they would claim it's gay and it's, pedophilia and kind of shit. So he wanted to create a place where all the people in the area can come and develop their film in privacy and wouldn't have, anything destroyed. Um, but
that's incredible.
Yeah, I know this guy. Like you could tell, like at the very beginning, he had very strong ambitions to. I don't know. I feel like it's just like this drive towards like just helping people. It's a really stone answer, but yeah, it's helping people.
Which is like what they're supposed to be doing.
Right, because that's their job. Duh.
I'm like, wait, what else do they do? A lot of other shit. I don't know.
But he brought people together in those days, and he was a hippie at heart. And his love with Scott kind of brought everything together. And there's a few other people. I don't even remember their names. I just remember faces. I'm sorry. But there was people there. There is a raggedy couch, and it was just it was a really shabby little place. And they had a little area where they used to congregate, the community, and they would talk and have discussions. And even with all of the effort and energy he put into his first election, I believe he made it to like seventh, because like there's 6 slots and he made it to seventh. Like he almost got there. It was with 13,000 votes.
And did he like also like he didn't pick like a side? Like he didn't say that he was Republican or Democrat?
He was the kind of person that he was
undecided, right?
He always said that like where he was in the middle. Okay. He said where if you were on the left, he was viewed too conservative. And if he was on the right, he was viewed too liberal. So
I love it.
I don't feel the same way because like I kind of know where my beliefs and philosophies lie, but I get that idea and it makes a total sense because the way that he behaved and the way that he started this whole like I say like a movement, okay? Because even looking on these films and Castro was the go-to in San Francisco. When they say the summer of love in those songs, they're being serious. It was gays were flocking by the dozen, and not just gays, lesbians, trans. There was a large community in San Francisco at the time. And the way that he saw the community was kind of how like everybody had to take care of each other. And like one of the earliest things when we talked about this, which I wanted to mention, was the Coors boycott. So Coors basically had this policy at the time where they would fire drivers if they were homosexual or had any, affiliation or anything like that, and they were fired. And I forgot his name, but there was a guy that he was part of the workers, union, and he didn't really like Harvey because he was, as he quote, a faggot. And I mean that was and like fruitcake. There was like fruit and faggot. There's a lot of words in there.
Yeah, I was born in the 80s, so like we don't say the F word.
Fruit. Anyway, but so the way that Harvey convinced him to work with him was Harvey said, "Look," he says, "you want to take care." You want to take care of your workers because Harvey wanted to, take care of these workers because they're bringing over beer into San Francisco and they can lose their jobs. So Harvey said to him, he says, it's not just about the gay community. This guy was Irish. He said, they can come after you too. They can come at, once you say no to this, doesn't take very long until you say no to that.
Yeah, it's like you have to watch out for the rights of other people or they'll just do the same exact thing to you. It is true. It's like, why not stand up for the person next to you? Because most likely, you're not going to get treated worse than them.
But the Coors boycott worked so well because Harvey pushed it really strong. Okay. When I say pushed it strong, he put out an ad. Okay. Now this is like back before we had Facebook, y'all. Okay, this is back in the day. We put in an ad.
What's the ad on?
I forgot. Like it was like one of like the Gazette or something that was in San Francisco
in the newspaper.
Yeah. And it basically stated, to support the boycott, to cancel Coors. And people were throwing the shit away. Like they were pouring it down the sewers. Bars were removing the caps. And Harvey was like coming there and being a part of the community as they're doing this.
Ooh, what a dark history for Coors.
And it got so bad that the breweries stopped sending over beer. It got to such a bad point in California that Coors was the 6th liked beer. It went from number 1 all the way down to 6.
Wow.
That's fucking progress right there.
Yeah, you start to fuck with people's money. You can kind of get their attention.
He knew, this is the cool shit about him, was he would learn things about his environment, because like he was living in San Francisco, he was learning the community, bringing people together. And he knew how to give the people what they needed. And like, we'll get this in a little bit, but when he first came to office, which I told you this was not, he was first something else before he was, but anyway, we'll get to that. But he basically learned his environment. He was the kind of guy that would just absorb, like spend hours waking up early in the morning, going to bus stations, going to people's houses, like getting out and just talking to people.
Do you know if he went to college?
I believe so. Yeah. He was forced by his parents because he had this big problem at the very beginning where he didn't know what he wanted to do. He never knew what he wanted to do. And his parents push. That's what they do. They push. And he went to college and he hated it because it was all females. Yeah. He went to a teacher's college, and at the time, a lot of teachers were female. So all these teacher schools were full of females, and he just made a mockery of the situation. Okay.
Like, that's not exactly what he was looking for.
No, not at all. And I mean, he graduated with a learning degree, and he did use his learning degree at a time. But to be honest, like
I was just like curious if he had any like proper background in politics.
He learned math.
No, I mean, like, what I'm trying to say is that I like that he didn't have any specific proper training in politics.
No, like, he didn't. He was not a politician.
That's what I'm trying to say, is that like it's cool when somebody who's not a politician decides that they're going to stand up for their community. That's what I'm saying about him like being like it just like being like a natural movement for him. Like he was the guy that was going to speak up for everybody, is what it seems like to me. Am I just rambling? I mean, that's what stoners do.
No. I know that this is stoner culture, honey. This is what American Groove is all about.
That's what we'll rename this: Rambling with Karissa and Dave.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing about Harvey was, I said this earlier, the only politicians that will ever be good are the politicians that come from our home. Okay, they're people that can represent us. Okay, not the fucking multimillionaires. Okay, no disrespect, but there's the community that comes first, because we are the ones that fucking work every single day, and we do what we can to survive, to be a part of something. And Harvey was one of those kind of politicians where he was molded from the community. That's the kind of people we need in government, is a people that are molded from our environment, where we can say, hey, he can represent us. Hey, he can represent us. That was the whole thing about Harvey. He was a kind of politician where he was representing the elderly. He was representing the Chinese, the Asian community. He was representing the gays. He was representing the lesbians. He was representing the straight people.
Well, he represented his district, and his district was full of all those things that you
But he
just
didn't
listed.
have to go to this level. That's the point, though. He didn't, his type of job, he could have just, done his few show runs, but he didn't. He went out there. He spent sometimes 16 hours a day. 16 hours a day for, okay, he made $9,000 a year. Okay, in the late 70s. All right, and you might think, okay, $9,000, nice.
No.
In the 1970s, a medium income was $24,000
in San Francisco.
Yeah, and I'm like, he made less than the medium income in the 1970s. So he was fucking broke as shit.
He had his business, the camera store, but like it
failed.
It doesn't sound like he, was like rolling in dough. Like it sounds like he did this out of the goodness of his own heart. Like
he cared genuinely.
I mean, he genuinely thought it was wrong for people to have to be closeted. Like I don't know. When I watched his speeches, like I was like moved. Like I'm like, shit. Like I haven't heard somebody talk like this in a long time. Like, I don't know. Go ahead and like pull up a video, man. Like listening to him talk is just inspiring. Like the truth and honesty in his words were so cool. Like I love the way that he talked to people. He also had he's like fiery and passionate, but like he's respectful. Like he's not an ass, at all. Like a lot of times when people are like, like in your face with like stuff that people don't want to hear, they can be kind of a dick, but like he's like passionate, but like calm and respectful at the same time. Like he's professional, I guess is a cool way to put it.
Well, the thing about him too was, which we kind of skipped over, he was in theater. Okay, he got introduced to theater. He had a slew of horrible relationships. But one of his slews, he was in theater. He was an actor, and he got introduced into it. And one thing that he played really well was he could play characters and wear costumes. His look, like anybody that's looking, is in this book. He removed the hippies. So like there was a beard here. Actually, you know what? I think there's a picture in here somewhere. This is so old school right now. Like I'm opening up a book to show a picture. Okay, if you can see this.
Okay.
That was
David
him.
Is showing us a book and it has a picture of two men with their shirts off.
Yes.
I see these two men with no shirts on.
That is Scott, which we've been talking through the episode.
Laying on the floor.
And that is and then for anyone that's watching the YouTube.
I feel like one thing that we left out is at the same exact time that Harvey Milk has been doing all these wonderful things, putting in all this great effort. There's also another person who is working nearby, and his name is Dan White. And he is like a retired.
We're gonna get doing it,
but he's just kind of along the sidelines, just working, and we're not gonna bring him up, and we're not gonna bring him up. We're not gonna tell, But he's working, He's nearby, and he's just kind of like,
Dan White.
Just there. Right. So
Dan White was a firefighter. And also, I believe he was also an ex-police officer. And, he just graduated high school. He didn't have any other type of degree. And when Harvey was elected district supervisor, it was at the time where he became district supervisor. There was a Chinese man that became the district supervisor. There was a woman that was elected that was a friend of Harvey as well. She was Hispanic. And it was just a very diverse group of people in the district at the time in San Francisco in 1978. And it was the same thing with Danny. Danny was, a young guy. He was one of the youngest people to be a district supervisor. He didn't have any idea of politics, but he was the type of guy in his district, which was District 8, It was middle class, Irish American, Irish Catholics, where he was just part of the community. Everybody knew Danny, like they called him Danny Boy, like he was their buddy, their friend, and he won. He won, and he was a part of that weird group for the 11 months. It lasted longer, but until Harvey, unfortunately, was assassinated. But he was a part of that weird group, and his problem was he never fit in. Okay,
we don't have to explain everything about him. No. We can touch back on him because I just wanted to say that at the same time, there was a person nearby developing. Yeah. And then we can go back to Harvey, and then you just understand there was this other person that was also working.
Yeah, stoners are never consistent, so we never stay on track. We're always going in different directions.
It's like a Pulp Fiction movie.
Yeah, just make sure you're wearing your seatbelts because we do not cover for car accidents. Okay.
I'm just saying, there's a side character.
Yes, there is a side character. Her name is Twix. But anyway.
His name is Dan. Danny Boy.
Oh, Danny Boy. But even before this, so I mean, he failed to get reelected. And I told you this, one of his first ways of getting into City Hall was George Moscone. Mm-hmm. He wanted to be elected as mayor. And he wanted to get in with the gay community at the time because Harvey was, he already got the community pumped up for his first election and it failed anyway. But, everybody knew who he was in the community. And George Moscone wanted to win on that. So Harvey said to him, tell you what, if you help me and get me a job, I'll help you win. So in return, George Moscone gave him a job. Now, to make a long story short, because I don't remember fucking 3 pages worth of it. I'm sorry.
Well, what?
It was 3 pages.
What are you fucking talking about?
He basically, there was an opening for district supervisor for District 16, which was a poor community. It was consisted of blacks and Hispanics, kind of a slaughterhouse, meat district, packing district kind of area.
I don't ever remember there being like districts, like this sounds like France, like Paris.
Well, a lot of cities are like this. I mean, New York City is exactly like this. There's my favorite is District 12. I don't know if you know where District 12 is in New York. Anybody knows?
No, I don't. We have counties where I come from.
No. Well,
I don't know. Maybe they do have districts and I just don't think about it.
Well, it's little. So, for example, it's community wise. So when you have a city like San Francisco, you have a lot of these diverse little groups. Now, one thing to keep in mind, which is important, and one reason why he failed Harvey twice was because he had to get all the votes of the entire city of San Francisco. Okay. He had to get all the groups, and a lot of groups would not vote in a homosexual. And when to get George Moscone in, George Moscone wanted to change that. He wanted to create where the district votes for the district supervisor. So that means that District 6, District 5. Sorry, District 5, which consists, I believe, of Auburn Heights, Castro. There was a few other areas that I remember.
Yeah, they got to vote him in.
Yeah. And that's how he got in his third attempt. So he had 2 failed attempts. So we kind of skipped over this. The first attempt, he went as a weird, creepy hippie. The second attempt, he put on the costume. That's literally what it said. He literally put on a costume. And he put on
the suit and tie is the costume. It's great.
He cut the ponytail. He clean shaved. He got a used suit from a cleaner's, suit that was never picked up. He got the suit. And he did it again. Like he went into it again with the clean vibe, and it fucking didn't work. And the shit that is kind of crazy was going back to what I was saying. He got the job because of George Moscone. And when he got in, there was an opening because this was, after his second attempt. I think it was 1975, I believe. Yeah, I think it was 1975. And he had a friend at the time. She, kind of told him, he wanted to wait a year or so until he got back in to doing the elections, because you have to understand it, he was doing everything himself. He had a group of people who were helping him. He had, writers and campaign, but it was a lot of work. And he was tired. He had this job now, and he was actually in City Hall. And he's like, I'm going to put it for a year and a half. And she said to him, no, go after District 16. It's open. Go for it. The problem was George Moscone had a friend by the name of Leo McCarthy that he had an IOU to him, which stated that for District 16, for that seat, he would make sure that his friend, I don't know, some fucking weird name that I can't remember to pronounce, would get the seat. Okay? So Harvey didn't know about this. Okay? Why fucking not? He wouldn't know this. He didn't have an iPhone back then. Okay? It's 1975. Hey, fucking loser. Anyway, all of a sudden he springs up. He's at one of the dinner things, and he says, "I'm gonna go ahead and run." And the mayor was not happy at all, and he fired him 4 hours later. So he kicked out Harvey. So Harvey was fired. So this is an important part of the story, which you don't generally get from the movies. There was already this. We're going to get into this a little bit later. There is this complex dynamic between Danny, Harvey, and George.
I mean, it sounds like George was a little bit hot-headed. Maybe impulsive, but I don't know. What you told me earlier on the phone is that George needed Harvey, back in the beginning to get elected in the first place, yeah,
he did.
Harvey helped George get elected,
Yeah. And it wasn't until a year later he ran again. So here's a funny thing. There was a guy, and I only remember his last name because it sounds like the thing from Star Wars, just Stoker. I think it was Stoke or some kind of shit. I don't know, whatever kind of way. But anyway, that's what it reminded me of.
And, I don't remember that person.
he was also gay, and he was also running for district election. But the way that Harvey presented himself to the community, and I mean, the man put it all. Okay, he put on the whole environment of where I'm here for the community, and he went out of his way to be represented by other communities. Okay, there was a woman we saw in the documentary. Her name was Anne Cronenberg. He got introduced to Harvey by a friend of his that knew the kind of work that she did, and he gave her a phone call, and she came, and like she said in the video, she was just she walked in there, and he's screaming and yelling, and he's like, "Oh, this is a thing we New Yorkers do." First of all, we only scream when we're with family because they can be so fucking annoying. Okay, that's number one. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I've heard some things on the phone. It's fine. I almost enjoy it.
It's Jewish family. What can you do?
There was this one time that there was a neighbor giving your mom some trouble, and the neighbor was in the hallway or something, and your mom, she could have murdered him, with just words. I was damn, woman.
My mom is real Jewish, honey. She's real Jewish.
It wasn't that. It was just she knows how to lay it down, back off kind of thing.
And he made it so important to listen to people. Mm-hmm. He spoke to a Black lesbian activist to help support his campaign. He spoke with straight people, the elderly. He really wanted to get everybody involved. And he called it, it was Harvey vs. the machine. That's how he labeled it. Because, the way that the politicians were working, it's a machine. They're not actually doing any of the work.
Well, speaking of machines, was it him that, made sure that they got the type of voting machine that, people of different languages could use? Was that?
Yeah, that actually happened.
Yeah. And he specifically called Chinese homes and was like, hey, we're gonna get this voting thing for you because it's gonna work for you and you can use it this way.
Yeah, and it's something that's also important to bring up because it is mentioned in the book. The Asian community, especially in California, especially in San Francisco at the time, it was very hard. It was very harsh. A lot of people were impoverished. They were in a lot of dangerous areas, and an important part of Harvey was creating safe streets. Creating an environment that, making sure the place looks nice, making sure everything is cared for. And the same thing applied with the police. He did not care for police brutality, and he used to get himself involved with it. He used to block off police officers and say, hey, what are you doing? Why are you hurting this person? And he had this drive of creating, listen, we're all here for the same fucking shit. Okay. You want to get to fucking work. You want to go to bed. Okay. You need to open up your store. We all got we got shit that we got to do. So why are we living in an environment where we can't fucking trust each other? Okay. We can't trust the people that are supposed to protect us. Okay. When we're in danger. How is that a community? And Harvey's not the only one that talks about this. This is a thing that we live in a society now where we live in cities, okay? That is not natural. It's not natural to live in a city, but we do. And because we live in a city, we have many people that live here, just like you do. You have many people that open businesses, okay, that have very similar lives to you, very similar struggles to you. Instead of us fighting each other because we're gay, because we're trans, because somebody's fucking Black or Asian or fucking Latin, who gives a fucking shit? Okay, he's your fucking neighbor. Okay, this guy fucking owns the grocery store down the street. He's a part of your community. Show some fucking respect. Seriously. That's what it's about. It's not about who's fucking gay and who's straight. Who gives a shit? Doesn't matter in the end.
I agree with you. I saw, there was this, from what I read and from what I saw, it seems like for people at the time, and I still see it now, there is this, the way that this guy put it was they're not like us, this just otherness, this, just people treating people like less than because they're not us. They're not the same as whoever this us is, and it's just it happens everywhere. And I think that that's what Harvey was trying to stop. He was trying to say that this is all a community and he's standing up for the minority. I do know that there was a lot of police brutality towards homosexual people. He also said, that the cops used to go in and just rough up gay people because what was wrong with it in a cop's eyes.
Listen, honey, anybody can ruffle my ruffles. But if you want to put handcuffs on this, you got to leave my $300 right beneath my pants. You know where to put it. Yes, you do.
how, I mean, it would be terrifying to be gay in a community where you know for sure the police do not or will not help you. I mean, I still kind of feel like the police are not going to help me, in general, but like,
I mean, you're in LA, so like, I mean, I'm fucked here too. I mean, I'm in Broward County in Florida. We don't have no fucking cops.
but it's like, this is your community, but your
Yeah.
cops aren't there for you. Which
And
happens
here's
a
the thing
lot.
too. And here's the thing too. Harvey Milk, his own community, like associations and clubs and groups, they were against him. Okay, from the get-go. They called him a weirdo. They call him they called him all kind of shit. He had feminist groups and lesbian groups that were against him too. There were a lot of groups that were against him on both sides that were threatening him. And he said this so many fucking times, and you hear this in videos, and he said this is like, I'm here for gay and straight people. He was stating that, yes, I'm gay and I'm representing the gay community, but I want to represent also the community that revolves around it.
Yeah, everybody else too. I think
Yeah, exactly. Everybody else too.
Yeah, I was really disappointed to see, and I've always been disappointed in how religion had impacted, politics. I mean, as a Christian, it always bothers me to see this homophobic side of Christianity. It always makes me feel bad. I hate it.
The problem,
and I'm reminded of it in this, and in many different things. I'm reminded.
The thing about homophobia is from this perspective. When you have somebody that says that they're homophobic, okay? The way I look at it is that, so you have a problem what I do in my private bedroom. So you have a problem what I do personally, because let's face it, sex is a personal thing. Okay, some of us share sex. I know that. There are some people that do that. That's fine. But I'm saying in general, people have sex as personal. So why do we have this conversation of, homosexuals are bad? Are you homosexual? No.
I think it's just like this, like, again, that, again, it's just that, like, not like us kind of thing. My phone is dying, and so I have to plug it in, and now I'm toying with this phone. I hate technology, David.
You're keeping the experience alive, honey.
Oh God.
Yeah, well, yeah,
we're trying. I plugged in the phone so that it didn't die. But now it won't stand up anymore because I don't exactly have like a stand for it. It was just like balancing.
We got to get you a stand. I have a stand here, so everybody sees me perpendicular.
I feel like I need to give my dog a bone and find a place to put my phone. Like,
speaking of bones,
he can feel how. Here, you carry on the podcast for like 2 seconds, okay?
Okay, it's gonna be about 2 minutes. All right.
All by yourself.
Oh my God. I'm gonna, yeah. Anyway, so speaking about Harvey, where we left off, and once he was officially the district supervisor, the whole entire community was up, like, uproar. They finally had this man that they were working so hard, they failed fucking 2 times, and they finally got him up there. And he was the kind of guy that pissed them off. Okay, even fucking Dianne Feinstein, whatever her fucking bullshit name is, horrible lady. By the way, if anybody is depressed about how crazy expensive San Francisco is, blame that lady. She's the cause and problem for all of that shit. But anyway, he had a problem at the very beginning because a lot of the work that he wanted to do he couldn't do, because he realized that once you're a part of uh, government, your hands are a little bit more tied than you think. And to put it in short, it's where you have just piles of papers that need to pass to departments that make no sense over to other departments that make no more sense, just for this process to linger on and on and on. And like, I don't understand politics in any of this shit, but it baffles me. But anyway, at the very beginning, he started, and we're going to get into this because I think, we can go over some stuff, afterwards, but it's important we go into this. He became close with Dan White, and one of the first problems between the two of them was Harvey learned quickly that one of the ways to win ballots so they can get their laws passed in their districts was to, trade. So if you do this for me, I do this for you. Kind of shtick. Okay, shtick. I fucking love that word, shtick.
It sounds kind of crooked though.
What do you mean?
Like it.
That's government. Government's crooked. We all know this. Everybody's watching this knows this. Like
Then don't ask me what I mean. Sounds crooked.
It is, yeah. But he made a deal with Danny because what happened was in his district there was this old, Christian, like kind of nun school that kind of dwindled down, and it was going to be sold off, and it was going to be sold over to, the juvenile district to create a place for these kind of kids. And in Danny's district, which was District 8, they didn't want a place like this. Like, they felt that it was attract the wrong kind of people. And so the problem was for Harvey, he had a very hard time getting the gay rights bill passed in San Francisco. He kept on being, kind of thrown around because it had to be passed by Danny. So Danny had to get all that done through, the police department and the fire department and the bullshit department and the more fucked up bullshit department and so on. And he basically made a deal with Harvey's. So he said, look, if you tell them not to put up the juvenile district, the facility, I'll get the bill for the gay rights passed. And this is the biggest, I think this was kind of the turning point for all of this shit. Harvey went back on his word because the problem is that what Harvey was representing, he was representing taking care. Remember, we said this earlier, like he was taking care of the youth. He was very part of the next generation. He was a very strong believer of, gay kids just coming out and figuring out what they wanted to do and really exploring themselves and finding out what they really want to do in life. And in a way, he betrayed Danny because when they came up for the ballot and when they asked Harvey his opinion, yay or nay for the psychiatric ward, he said yay. And that pissed Danny off. And eventually, Harvey got his gay bills right passed, which went into law. So I feel like there was a bit of animosity and jealousy from the very beginning because, even with what I was reading, and Danny had a sort of jealousy towards Harvey. Danny saw Harvey was getting all his paperwork done because Harvey worked hours. Okay, we're talking about hours upon hours. He would work like 16 to 17 hours a day. And he was really into it. Like, his life was all around this. He really wanted to be a part of it. And Danny had a kid and he had a wife and he just wasn't keeping up with the job. So, God, shit, I've probably been talking for fucking 15 minutes. Sorry.
No, I mean, like, if we're gonna talk about Danny, I mean, we can talk about him,
Danny
but are
fucking
we
boy.
there? I don't think we're there yet.
And it's important to first bring this into account so we have a little bit of a founding. Um, I'm trying to think.
I know. I have the munchies like really bad. Like
Yeah, I mean, this is a problem when you have a stoner culture podcast and you smoke the marijuana on
I
the.
want gum, and I know that I bought some. Like I bought some like really, really awesome gum.
But let's not let a little bit. Um, um.
Well, I also am still just having phone problems because I'm like an old woman.
I love this though. It's like we're giving our audience a different perspective of Karissa with each shake of the phone.
It's so bad. Like, it's just like, I don't know how to do any better, guys. Like, I honestly didn't know that I was living on my phone tonight. I didn't know that that was going to happen. I just thought that somehow we would do it with my computer. I don't know. I didn't know that I would have to do it. And now I really want to chew some gum.
So
David, I'm struggling.
I hear you, honey. We got to stay strong. So Harvey's now in office and he has. I know this is completely off tangents. Harvey's now in his. Harvey is now the district supervisor of District 5, and it's kind of sad because towards the end of 1978. His life was starting to take a turn for the worst. He was struggling financially. He didn't have a lot of money, and he had a lot of debt. And at the time, towards already October, I think this was earlier. I believe this was in August. They had the problem with Proposition 6. So Prop 6, if anybody. We're gonna do a little history lesson right now. There was a woman by the name of Anita Bryant, and she started up an uprising that happened in Florida, Miami, Florida, for people that are homosexuals, that they lose their rights and they can lose their jobs. And it really scared Harvey, and it really scared the San Francisco community because California was a very liberal state at the time, and it still is. But there was a man that was in the Senate. His name was John Briggs. He found an opportunity. This is so fucking sick. He found an opportunity to boost his power. So he didn't really care if people were homosexuals. He didn't give a fuck. He just cared about having power. So he made up all this blasphemy of how if you have homosexual teachers, they are going to rape children because, homosexuals are rapists and pedophiles. And they went on a whole tangent. I mean, they won in a bunch of states to basically erase gay rights.
They said that it's statistically proven that more molesters are actually straight.
Correct. Again, it all of this is just racism and homophobia. This is where all this shit comes from. All it starts with somebody. It's important. All it starts with somebody saying, "Oh, I don't like your skin tone. Oh, I don't like the person you're with. Oh, I don't like your hair color. Oh, I don't like you." All it takes is the one thing. And then once you have that one thing, it's a ripple effect.
Well, like I was saying, anybody could say, like, well, this person's not like us. Well, in order to say this person's not like us
in that way,
you would have to have an us. So I think that what happens is when people start like ganging up, they start like teaming up. They create this like mob mentality type thing where they're like against each other. They're in groups and they've grouped up against each other. It's like you're not like us, but like if the people are one on one, you might be different than one another, but like I think that it starts to happen within like groups and the people kind of like gang up against each other. I almost feel like if you had like a room of like one of each different type of minority, maybe the people would like have to kind of just like, oh God, we're all different.
Yeah, we are all different. And the thing is that our differences doesn't make us not united. Just because somebody's a lesbian,
it shouldn't,
doesn't mean that a lesbian can't hang out with a straight woman. Doesn't mean that they can't be friends because it's just because one woman likes women and one likes men. That's what they're sexually attracted to. To me, it baffles me because I have tried so hard to look at it from a different scope. And I can understand Harvey's perspective and the perspective of the Castro and the gay community over here is where all I think we're trying to say is that we as people, we're only different because what we like to fuck, where we get our food from, I'm dead serious, and where we fucking originally came from. Like, that's where the shit is. I mean, it's just like fucking skin tone, fucking sexuality, fucking gender. I mean, it's minuscule things compared to a possible 85-year lifespan for each of these people. You're taking one minuscule thing out of their 85-year. Think about this. One little minuscule thing out of an 85-year lifespan, let's just say. It's so insignificant compared to the rest of what this person could accomplish. What does it matter? That's the point is
people felt threatened. That's the only thing that I can think is that people felt threatened. I look at Dan White, and I think that he probably had like his absolutely insane father's voice like pounding through his head, telling him, like what's right from wrong. Just this like old generation person, like just speaking this right from wrong. And it's just like people, they're taught about the world by their parents, and then that's what they are taught is like success or not. And it, unfortunately, racism is something that is taught to people.
Unfortunately, still in this country.
Yeah, and I'm saying like it's a choice. Like I was not taught racism. I mean, you honestly have to teach the opposite of racism in order to accomplish having a non-racist child if you want to. But I think back then, it was even worse.
It was. And it's better now than it was 40 years ago. But the last few months of his life, he was experiencing a lot. And of course, they won Proposition 6, thankfully. But even with gay rights today, like, to be honest, I live in Florida. Here's the really fucked up shit. They can fire you and not give you a reason here in Florida. It's legal. So that means your employer can fire you because you're gay, because you're Asian. They can fire you for whatever shit. They can fire you for whatever, and they don't have to tell you. So this is why it's important to bring up these conversations again, even though it's been 40 years, is to remember that we don't have that much freedom. We have this much freedom. And it's not, I'm not trying to be pessimistic. What I'm trying to say is that when it comes to society, progress is slow. It's very slow. We need to understand this. That's why, like, 40 years seems like a long time. It's not. If you think about it, you know, like society, social, culture wise, it's not. It's a very short period of time.
But he got a lot done, like in 11 his months. Period of time.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
Wow, I like that.
You know, you can think of the conspiracy of maybe he knew he was going to be assassinated and like planned the 11. I mean, this was fucking bullshit, but it would be kind of be a cool conspiracy to think like he planned the 11 months up to his assassination.
When I got on the internet, there was a bunch of conspiracies. Like, I didn't read any of them, but like I noticed that like there was a bunch of conspiracies on there. There's
one of the oldest punker ones that I heard on a rock and roll punk podcast. I love those fucking shit, by the way. Anybody that's out there.
What, conspiracies?
No, yeah, I fucking love conspiracies. Are fucking amazing. But
Harvey Milk conspiracies.
This one is kind of interesting. It's a theory where Dianne Feinstein had him killed, as well as George Moscone. And the main reason for this is because she was very, very wealthy, and she had her ass all the way up the real estate ladder. I mean, honey, that thing was real deep, like in there. And that's what she did. She destroyed San Francisco. The San Francisco that we know and love that died in 1978 no longer exists. She made it extremely expensive. She destroyed the city. And we're left now with a really, like, I know people that have lived in San Francisco. I know people that go to San Francisco. It's very bad. Thank you, Feinstein.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that it's pretty bad from a few different people.
God. And it's kind of interesting because in the book, it kind of mentions this, where he kind of knew early on that she was a piece of shit. And he just like had a sense, like he would say certain things to his colleagues. You know, he wouldn't trust her with a lot of different things. But I mean, like, with everything that like we've discussed, one like really important moment which we spoke about, which was earlier in the year, which was in August, he did, I think it was the Gay Freedom Parade. I think it was in June. And I think it's called The Life of Harvey Milk. It's on HBO Max. I know that for sure. So anybody that has HBO Max is on there. It's made in 1984. That's one of our credits that we have. The other one is this book, Harvey Milk, and it's by Lillian Faderman. So this is where all of our research is coming from. And in the documentary, he was in his Volvo. That was actually his car. And he's sitting there and he's wearing jeans. He's not wearing a suit. He's wearing a white shirt. And he has a band, which was common. You know, people used to wear symbols, have signs. You saw that. And it had, you know, the pink triangle, which is the symbol of, you know, being gay, as a pink triangle.
Pink triangle on our sleeve.
Yes. And that's where we got up to where he gave his speech. And here's the thing about Harvey, which we didn't mention. He received, besides being hated by the liberal gay community, groups, he was sent hate mail after hate mail, wishing death upon him. We're going to murder you. He was the kind of man that like was going to get murdered, but he didn't he never, you know, Anne even said that in the video, he didn't let it bother him. He just, he wanted to be part of the community. He wanted to take care of it.
Yeah, he said he didn't want to live his life like worried that somebody might kill him. But it's funny, I mean, like he wasn't like out in public when he died, so I
He
already
died in.
smoked my one joint. It's gone now.
I'm sorry. I got a little left. Um,
Um, but I found the gum that I was looking for, so I'm pretty happy about that.
so he reached a point. I mean, something to keep in mind. We've mentioned this before. His relationships were abysmal. He tended to date younger men, which, believe it or not, actually is actually common. In the gay community. A lot of people, it's common where you'll have people
Men date younger people.
Yeah, it's common in the community, and it's not weird. When I was reading this, it makes total sense. I experienced that myself.
They don't deserve you, David.
No, honey, they don't. I cost $500 an hour. It's a lot.
I could date an old guy too if I wanted to.
Honey, not too old. Not too old.
Old.
Oh my god. So
get off of my podcast,
Carissa. So basically, like with Scott, and the relationship was pretty much over. But he still stuck around. Like he took care of the store, the Castro, and Harvey was dating somebody at the time, which was he was a complete wreck, and he was a damaged human being, and he committed suicide because Harvey was so invested in his work, and he took care of him, like he was there for him, but Harvey realized like he couldn't blame himself. He did what he did. But it's kind of weird. Like up until Harvey's death, his boyfriend committed suicide. Jonestown happened, where 909 people did a mass suicide.
And a lot of them were from San Francisco. A lot of them.
Yeah, they were San Franciscans.
Yeah, a lot of people had moved to Jonestown. That was it in Africa, like northern?
No, it was in South America.
South America? What?
It was in Guiana.
Okay. Well, they had like a piece of land there. They all went out there and it didn't go very well. I don't know. I think a lot of people were really inspired by like the movement of people who like wanted to go live a different life. And it was like really disappointing to see that.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you have a cult. So, yeah. Nah. I
think a lot of those people join that thing with good intentions.
Every good cult starts with good intentions, honey. The problem is when it's done in practice. When it's done in practice, shit real hits the fan. I mean that seriously.
I understand the like wanting to like live outside of America and like creating like a new country.
But all seriousness, I mean, this is kind of hard to talk about because this is kind of like where you're hyped. Like I remember we were talking about this earlier. Like this is the kind of guy that I wish was alive. I don't give a fucking shit. He's around my grandfather's age, like 90. Can you imagine this guy right now, 90? I mean, he'd probably be just as nutty and cuckoo as he was in the 70s. And everybody would fucking love it. I think you get nutty and cuckoo as you get older.
I think he would have done a lot more.
He probably would have, yes. Yeah. And maybe gay marriage would have came a lot sooner in America. If you think about it, that would have been kind of cool if that did exist. Maybe what happened with the AIDS pandemic, we don't know. I mean, like these are all like theories. But the whole honesty was his rocky relationship with Danny from the get-go, and where there was backlash between the two of them because they kind of contradicted each other's beliefs. Danny, like we said, was very old school, traditional, and he was very homophobic. And he just did not work with Harvey. He was just jealous and he was just angry.
They had very different points of view. They represented different people. I mean, I feel like Harvey cared about everybody, but it feels like to me that Danny just only cared about people who were like him and believed the things that he believed, and it was just like, I mean, I don't really know that.
I mean,
He might
white
have cared about everybody
superiority.
else.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know that, but like it just from what I
It
got about
is.
it,
Yeah. Sorry.
it was like he just for me, I think in government we should have people representing lots of different types of beliefs. And I think it's okay that Harvey was representing, no, I think it's okay that Danny was representing something that he believes in. That's fine. But he also needs to be okay with other people representing things that they believe in. Like, you do not get to voice your opinion if you don't let anyone else. Because why would you be allowed to voice your opinion? Like you need to let other people do it if you want to have the right yourself.
And I think like the cherry on the top of the cherry on top was he resigned after Proposition 6 and he was just pissed off and he was angry. It was for Friday. And then over the weekend, he came back and he retaliated and he says, no, I made a mistake. I have to take care of my family. I'm going to be coming back. And he basically told everybody that he was coming back. And, Mayor Moscone at the time, he was going to take him back, but Harvey said no. Harvey fought against it. He says, no, he quit. He gave it up. To make a long story short, the real reason why he left was because he wasn't making enough money and he was complaining that he was working too hard. They couldn't support his family. I mean, realistically, you have to understand that district supervisors in the 1970s, they were part-time workers. Okay, these were people that had their own businesses and then they worked for the community. Nobody really did this full time. And Harvey and Danny were the ones that they did this full time because they gave up their lives to do this. Danny gave up working as a fireman to be working as a district supervisor. Harvey gave up, the camera store and this whole thing that he had going on to do this, again. So
there was this clip of Danny and he was like crying and he was like,
oh, we'll get there.
He's
honey,
like,
we'll
my wife has to work.
Oh, poor motherfucking piece of shit. I'm
He's
sorry.
Like, my wife has to work long hours and the babies with the babysitter. And I was like, oh man, like it must have been a big deal for your wife to work.
Let me go into a mall right now and just fucking murder everyone because like my life is so bad.
That's what I'm saying is like I feel like he had this like old school like man's voice in his head, like your wife shouldn't have to be working. Like he had this old voice in his head.
Let's ease our listeners into this because honey, like this is going to be a little bit of a bumpy ride. He died, I believe it was November. Can you help me over here?
You're not to go there. Don't go there.
I mean, he died in November. I think it was November 27th.
No. That's later. Yeah? Okay. You already did it.
Well, we're going to talk about the White Night riots, too. It's going to be fucking dope. We're going to get there. We're getting there. We're almost there. So, the day that he died... So everybody should understand this, okay? It's 1978. You have the mayor of San Francisco. This guy goes through a window in the basement in City Hall with an armed gun with an extra round in his other pocket, okay? He enters the building because he didn't want to get caught by the metal detectors because he had a gun that was loaded with another pack in the other pocket, okay?
Yeah, he's like... He just out of nowhere decides that he wants his job back. and then he was gonna kind of get it back, but then, you know, Milk sees this opportunity. So he goes down and he talks to the mayor, and he's like, "Hey, like this is like the sixth, vote that we need, and he's like, we can change everything with this." I feel like the two of them had this opportunity and they like jumped on it, and and it's like, "Hey buddy, like you screwed up." So,
it's on their own death sentence basically. Because like if Danny, they never did that, if they took him back,
I know.
I know, like
they really pushed it. But it's like they didn't do anything illegal.
No,
like,
they didn't.
The dude like freaking
resigned.
He dropped out. He resigned, and it's like, it's stupid to go back and forth, but like I also feel like obviously Danny came down there with the wrong attitude to try to get his job back. Like what the like what? Now he was a retired police officer. So like, I mean, like, yeah, that's why he's carrying around a gun and acting like a hot shot and like going down, gonna like be insane. I mean, it's just really, really intense. I also want to point out that it was like, okay, so like Thanksgiving was that Thursday. And then over the weekend, who knows what happened, but he marched down there Monday after Thanksgiving. We all just had Thanksgiving, and I'm thinking, damn, that's really stressful time. Plus, he said there's a lot of stress on the family with the money and the blah.
This is just my conspiracy theory. From what I can tell,
he marched down there on Monday after Thanksgiving and shot a couple guys.
What I'm thinking is, it's possible, and again, I can't prove this, and I don't see any, but just my theory. He might have been on pills, like narcotics, like some really strong shit. And the reason why I say this, the way he killed these people. Okay, if anyone's, I'm sorry, this is gonna be really graphic. So if you don't want to hear this, just close your ears. He shot the mayor 4 times.
Yeah, okay. and then shot him in the head. After already shooting him, he like walked up to him, and then same thing with Harvey.
No, then he did it even worse. He did it worse with Harvey. What the horrible part was, they found out after the coroner report, Harvey had his hands up. Okay,
but it was like after he shot him, I'm sure Harvey was already dead with his hands up and everything, and then and then he shot him like 4 times or whatever. Then he goes up to him, puts the gun against his head, and shoots him again, like to make sure that he's dead. It's just like so intense. Like really, 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 really murderous. Like,
I think he was on something.
It is like extremely wild action. Like,
yeah.
But there was somebody who like made a quote or something and just said that like there was this tension that was like brewing, like just like a tension that was just like growing, and it was like you could feel it in the air that it was an unsafe political climate at the time, and that's what I was saying is like, and what you were saying about how like Harvey kind of said that like, it was totally possible for him to get assassinated. Like, I feel like maybe this was like, yes, everyone was shocked, but I feel like maybe it was more possible than you think, because it was possible.
I think one of the horrible parts were the fact that this man could enter into City Hall. And again, this goes back to, hold on. Okay, that's better. It goes back to what I had to experience as a kid. Sandy Hook. Okay. I remember as a kid growing up, we never thought about school shootings. And then all of a sudden there was school shootings. It was a realization where, how can we be safe if we can't even protect ourselves? I mean, for fucking Christ's sakes, This man is able to murder. Okay. I think it was like 11 o'clock in the morning or something like that. I think it was like this was early in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It was like Monday at like 11.
It's like he's able to murder the mayor and the district supervisor on a Monday morning. I mean, yeah, I guess people are busy and they're all running away, but it's not the point. Just think about that.
Yeah, okay, well that one guy, he said, I wish I knew who the hell it was, but it was quoted in the documentary. He said that if Danny would have just killed the mayor, it would have been totally different than if Danny killed both of them. Because now Danny has killed the mayor and a gay man. And so it was almost like the city gave less shits because it was a gay man. Yeah. And it would have been a bigger deal if he'd have just shot the mayor. You know? But it was like, man, just hearing that type of shit, it just really bothered me a lot. You know, sometimes it can be really hard to be reminded. I live kind of in my own little stoner bubble trying to just like get by.
Just to put this in perspective, we won't bore you. His trial basically consisted of this bullshit very sad recording he made of himself. Boo hoo hoo, motherfucker. Yeah, you know, I'd love if Mark David Chapman did that same fucking shit 30 fucking years ago. What would have happened?
I mean, I always feel bad for people who are mentally ill. Like it's embedded in me.
Honey, this is beyond levels.
He's mentally ill.
I mean, he hired a lawyer. This is how crazy this man is. He hired a lawyer to put forth in front of the jury this bullshit cry of, because of his stress and
it's nuts, you killed people.
Wait, we're getting the juice part. Because he ate an excessive amount of junk food.
Twinkies.
He had a metabolic.
I told you it was Thanksgiving.
I don't know of a better word of putting this, but that was by far the dumbest trial.
It was so dumb. How the hell those lawyers get away with that? Like, I cannot with that trial. Like, I was just like, wait, what? Like, I couldn't believe any of it. I was like, excuse me, the man got out? Like,
yeah, 1984.
Like, what? Like, since when could you kill a government official? And that's what I'm saying. I don't know. I'm saying
that's how petty. That is how petty this fucking country has been. Is that we will basically abolish every single law. We'll eradicate every type of jurisdiction or structure that exists for one single person, one single purpose, is to completely eradicate the idea of this kind of person existing. And I'm going to say this, and I don't fucking care. The Reagan administration didn't fucking care about AIDS. They didn't give two shits that the gay people were fucking dying, all this shit. So many people died. Way more than what we've experienced in the past 2 or 3 years. And he never fucking uttered the word AIDS. Not once in his fucking campaign for 8 years. It's this idea in this country. If you're a gay man, if you're Asian, if you're black, if you're Hispanic, you're a fucking Jew, you're a Muslim, well, guess what? Go fuck yourself. You're not welcome. And you may say to me, well, we have it better these days. Well, honey, we have it better these days in some places in this country, not in every single place. The story of Harvey Milk's death and the fact that this man was murdered and the way he was fucking treated after he died by our system, not by the people. The people treated him like fucking the way he deserved to be treated. But the way our jurisdiction system treated a man that slaughtered 2 people in cold blood, and they're like, it's manslaughter. What the fuck is wrong with you? You know, I would love if any of those motherfuckers, out the cocker pieces of shit that were in that jury from that trial. I want to talk to them. I want to have a conversation.
They said that at that time, if you were a gay man or woman, you were turned away from being on the jury. If you were a minority, you were not on the jury. So how many people were going to care about the gay guy that cared about the minorities?
Right, exactly, like the black person that gets thrown in prison for 36 years because he had 1 ounce of weed. Yeah.
But it's like there was nobody on the jury that identified with Milk more than they identified with Danny.
It's not just about Milk. See, that's a problem also, like I'm trying to point out is this blindness of mushing crap together. Okay? You have a city official, a man that represented. Do you know what they do to somebody that murders an official? They get the death sentence.
Well, also, I mean, like, isn't it worse for you if you murder somebody, just anybody? Wouldn't it be worse than 4 to 5 years? Like, that's crazy. Like,
well, it depends what kind of murder, but if you murder, I know this, if you murder official, like an official government official, like Mayor Moscone, everybody, that's the thing is, if when we heard this in the documentary, everyone didn't think it would turn out that way because they knew no way this guy's gonna get the death sentence. I mean, he murdered the mayor.
Yeah, everybody thought that he'd get the death sentence for murdering the mayor, and they all think that the reason that he didn't was, you know, because Harvey Milk was gay. But it's the jury. I mean, they just, like, I saw the lawyers talk. They just like twisted everything and made it sound like he didn't plan on killing them.
Oh, he planned on killing them. Oh, please.
He had to have, you know, but they just twist everything up so much.
Of course they did. That's what they do best, honey. That's their job.
It's a wild story. I feel bad for Harvey.
But
you know,
what came after was the White Nine riots.
Well, at first they said that, you know, people came down to the building where it happened and everybody was really quiet, and there was like a candlelit march type thing, so, you know, when he first died.
That happened. Yeah, that happened when he first died.
When he first died, they did like this huge candlelight march, and they, you know, that was really, really, you know, everybody was quiet and peaceful and they were honoring him. But then later on, it felt like, because before, you know, it was really upsetting that this had happened to him, but now it really felt like the city, like it wasn't theirs anymore. Like, you know, and when to see how the city responded to the murder of Harvey Milk and George, it was just like, man, people just were fucking outraged. Like they couldn't hold it in anymore. I mean, they were burning down like cop cars. Like I saw like 10 cop cars on fire.
It was way more than that. It was way more than 10 cop cars. It was a lot. They destroyed.
I kind of like seeing a cop car on fire.
They destroyed. The thing about it was though, Harvey was kind of like the father for the community, because whenever they were angry, you know, about Anita Bryant and what she was doing, and when there were protests against the gay community, he wanted to create a protest where it didn't destroy businesses, because destroying businesses mean that more money has to be poured to fix what's been broken. So he would have marches where people would start, you know, walking down and go to City Hall, and he would talk to them. But when he died, they didn't have their leader. And actually, it's kind of funny. I actually learned a lot about this from No Dogs in Space. It's an awesome podcast from the Last Network. I'm going to give them a shout out. And they did a whole series on the dead Kennedys, and they talked a lot about this because his band was in San Francisco. When Harvey Milk died and George Moscone died, the city of San Francisco we know now was born. And I mean that literally. That's what happened. The city of San Francisco that they knew and loved died in November of 1978. And they had every right to be angry. The person that represented them was killed by a homophobic piece of shit that went to prison for 5 years. And they were broken. And they were angry. And the crazy thing about that riot, first, was one of the largest riots, gay riots we know of in history. And no one was arrested the next day. The cops didn't. You can hear in video footage, the cops didn't want to touch the gays. They knew their pain, and they knew what the community was feeling. And they didn't. They backed off. They pushed, but they backed off.
No, they said that they would arrest them, just like any other time, but they didn't. Yeah.
They didn't. They didn't arrest. It's crazy. They did not arrest not one person. No one was arrested.
They're breaking windows and throwing bricks and all kinds of shit, burning up cars. Yeah. It reminds me of that night at the beginning of the Black Lives Matter movement when, they fucking like burnt down the police station in Minnesota. And it was just like, okay, like, and they were just like, it's yours. Like, you take it now.
I mean, yeah. I you know what, like, relating to today's times, it is kind of like what happened with George Floyd. It's where that world died, that day happened again. And the days like Harvey Milk and George Moscone happen countless times. And it's, again, we're not glorifying these people. These people are not fucking gods. It's what they started. You have to understand this. The whole story about Harvey Milk is not just about Harvey Milk. It's the story of the community that revolved around him and the stories that happened around him. And to people that were in this community that experienced this man for 5 or 6 years, to now know that he's gone and they no longer have him, it ended something that could have been beautiful, a part of history. We'll never see that because San Francisco died, which is crazy.
Well, that like abandonment, like when I heard people talking about what it was like to, like lose that leader, it kind of reminded me of what it was like when Donald Trump got elected. Now, I have a lot of different feelings about it, but like I remember as a woman, because they had just released all that stuff about, grab her by the pussy. Mm-hmm. I remember as a woman, I was like scared. Like I felt this kind of like fear. And I know that a lot of the like homosexual like community felt that way too. Like this like fear of like, well, what's gonna happen to us now? And I have seen this happen many different times in history where you have somebody who you feel like kind of stands up for you, and then it becomes very obvious that like no one stands up for you, and it gets really scary. People lash out with anger, and their fear turns into aggression.
I think it's so important that the lesson that we can learn from Harvey is anybody could be Harvey. Think about his story. I mean, again, not to criticize, but he was just an average white liberal Jew. That's what he was. But he had a goal in mind. He wanted to do this, and he did it. And he made it a reality. And this happened with a lot of activists, not only for the gay community, but for many other communities. It just started with, I have a dream. Let's make that reality. And I think it's so important today because we have more ability now than Harvey Milk with the community had back then. We have the fucking internet. So we can do whatever the fucking shit we want. And we can state our opinions and not be shut up. And just like Twix. It's meowing in the background. You wanna wrap it up?
I like Twix meowing in the background.
Yeah, well, a little producer's telling us that the time has come.
Our producer's like, wrap it up, end it out. Yeah, David's like, you end it this time. I feel like with Harvey Milk, I was really, really impressed. I loved how fearless he was. Gosh, to me, that's a man. Like, I was just like, wow, like he just did what he believed in. I mean, he saw this opportunity to push this guy out that was in his way, and he took it and he got shot for it. And to me, that's just like, that's so Harvey Milk. Like, he would die doing this thing that he thought was the right thing to do for the city.
Because he believed in it.
I mean, I can't help but think that, they both got killed trying to make changes.
Just like,
and that, yeah.
Just like John Kennedy.
It's unfortunate. It is sad. It's hard to take it in. Like I said, I just learned everything about him and everything that he did for the community. And then to find out, everything that happened to him and then how the government reacted, or whoever, the judicial system, with, only giving the guy 5 years. I mean, did we even say that when the dude got out of prison, he committed suicide?
Good.
Like,
the world thanks him.
I mean, to me, it's just like, you couldn't have just committed suicide first. Like, the other thing I want to say is, like, I find it really disappointing that I didn't know who Harvey Milk was before we talked about this, like before I researched it with you. Like,
well, there's a lot of, it's the same thing with the drag. It's the same thing with drag community. It's the same thing with the ballroom community. It's the same thing with a lot of early gay activists. There have been, especially even earlier activists during, the segregation era and during Jim Crow and during the, the Asian Pacific Wave, which was during the late 40s and 50s. And a lot of these people have been kind of forgotten in history books, but we don't realize a lot of things that we take for granted now only exist because they were alive.
And it's just crazy to think that people would get fired and not be hired for their sexual preferences. I mean, people need to work. They need to make money. People need money to survive and live. Like, I know that it happens, but I can't imagine it happening on a mass level, like, it's just awful. Yeah, there's so much to be said about the pain that, people experience with having to live under those confinements. And I'm really happy that, that doesn't happen as much anymore,
And I'm gonna leave off with this, and this was something that Anne that Anne said that Harvey Milk. He said, if a bullet should shatter through my skull, make sure it shatters all the closets. And believe it or not, actually, I found this out today. There is an organization. They're called the Harvey Milk Foundation. They work on helping communities and support the locals, and continue the mission of Harvey Milk. So I'm going to leave a link in the podcast description. They are on Instagram, so it's Harvey Milk Foundation.
It's really cool.
Yeah, it's incredible that somebody like this, his legend is, and his work is still being continued. With that, I'm 2 hours in.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.